The Oakland Privacy Working Group was formed more than a year and a half ago in the wake of the Edward Snowden revelations, and it quickly focused on the Domain Awareness Center. The Domain Awareness Center first came to the community's awareness sometime in July of 13, but it had been in the works in Oakland for a couple of years before that. Nobody knew anything about it. So what is the Domain Awareness Center? It was designed to be a spy center, a mini NSA-like facility which would take in information from cameras, from ShotSpotter, social media, license plate readers, anything else they could feed into it. It'd be capable of tracking people through facial and gait as in walking recognition. It could discern patterns in your life through like where you were via license plate scans and social media and other data. All of this supposedly to prevent crime. Thanks to Brian and the others on the committee, we have a strong privacy policy that's been written.
I just want to recap a little bit about what JP said. In 2013, we lost 2 unanimous votes for a full-blown citywide surveillance network. Facial recognition, license plate readers, cameras throughout all OUSD public housing projects, all linked to the DAC. 2 unanimous votes by March 4th became 1 vote shy of stopping the entire project. So while some thought the failure to completely stop this project was a loss on March 4th, I see it as a huge victory. We scaled this back to a port infrastructure project, in essence, and it allowed the beginning of a privacy conversation with the city of Oakland.
The whole thing has been incredibly confusing, and we have been asking all kinds of questions. It took a long time to ask the right question to get the right information. So there are 2 general components to it. There's the Oakland Port, which we do not have authority over, and then there's the Oakland DAC, which we do have authority over. So what happens is the Oakland DAC is set up as a closed network. That means that there's no internet connection in or out. Any software that's installed, basically, it can't leave, which one of the reasons that's good, that means that nobody from the NSA or Google or anyone else can dial in and see what's going on. So they would have to go through a process of getting a court order and abide by our data sharing policies that Brian will get into later. We don't have authority over the DAC, or over the port, but the port is where the video cameras are. So what happens is the video cameras record all this stuff, and then they broadcast it into the DAC. And the DAC, the analogy I've used is kind of like YouTube. You go to YouTube and you watch a video, you click on play, you're not actually downloading the video onto your computer. You don't have the video file on your desktop or anything, but you can still click play, and that's what the DAC effectively is. It's a YouTube link into a camera that's held in another system. The one thing that we do record in terms of data is we create a bookmark. So let's say, I'll just do a quick example here. Somebody with a baseball bat is walking through the DAC, and assuming it's met the requirements necessary that Brian will get into, they can make a bookmark, say, here's a timestamp, here's what I saw. And does that pretty much suffice what it is? So it's actually, there's no video at this time being collected into it, and we've done basically everything that we can to make sure that it doesn't happen.
We'll jump into the privacy policy. How do we even get here? To show how bad the system was, the Domain Awareness Center was on the consent calendar in July. That is for ceremonial, non-controversial items. So you can tell that the city did not even consider, and this is after the first Snowden revelation had happened, did not even consider a privacy policy. Josh luckily saw it on the agenda and was the first speaker and said, where's your privacy policy? The council at least had the foresight to require in that vote, even though they voted to proceed, to require a privacy policy before enactment. It was still in city control, and they burned the clock for months and months and months, which actually worked out in our favor because we ended up building a pretty large coalition by March 4th. In March 4th, in the resolution that passed, they gave control of the policy to the citizens, and it happened to be me and some others, the ACLU and EFF. So briefly, what is the framework? The framework is that we have very narrow allowable uses. One of the main problems with this project was mission creep. They wanted to use it for everything. DC, Deputy Chief Bashir sat in our committee, one of our committee meetings. He said he actually does want to use it for petty theft. So that would require cameras everywhere. If you need to watch every little kid trying to steal a candy bar, you need cameras everywhere. So they really do envision this as a full citywide project, and that's what we're trying to eliminate. The port grant money was meant to secure the port. That's what it should be used for, and that's what we define the allowable uses as. Secondly, if you read the East Bay Express December 2013 investigative article that really opened up everybody's eyes, that's what caught my attention. The emails aren't talking about crime that the city was sending back and forth. They're talking about Occupy. So what we built in, because we do have a history of vandalism in some of our protests, we built in thresholds that must be met for reasonable suspicion, for written certification of the facts, so that when protests do get monitored, and they will be, all of the acts are going to get recorded. The use log, the audit, everything is going to be publicly available so that we get to judge whether this equipment is being used appropriately. And that's really the entire framework of the ordinance that I'm going to talk about later and the DAC privacy policy. You have an informed public debate, you have informed council consent, you have ongoing oversight, you have accountability, you have independent audit, and you have liability for misuse. We built in both statutory damages and a private right of action. Not only for small things, there might be a $500 penalty, but let's say there's something large, a civil liberties violation, or you get blackmailed, but whatever scenario pops up, you would have the standing to bring a lawsuit. And that is going to be a touchy issue. It's going to require a separate ordinance. There's going to be union resistance, staff resistance to that. So that's something we need to make sure that doesn't get watered down. Data sharing is prohibited, absent MOU, Memorandum of Understanding that has been approved by the City Council. I'm sure you've read enough stories in the last year and a half about DEA, FBI, CIA, everybody's sending data around, sharing data, accessing the same databases. There's a very controversial program called the Suspicious Activity Reporting, which has been used to target, especially recently has been Thanks, Ed. Which has been recently used to target the Muslim community, such silly things as buying 100 bottles of water. Led to a suspicious activity report. That report is now inside an FBI database. You have no data retention. Somebody else keys up your name, you're going to be in an FBI database. So we're trying to limit all of these little things as much as we can. Along with this policy, we're asking for a standing privacy committee to oversee the DAC, any changes to the policy, and also to help advise the city on privacy-related matters. We have 3 levels of audits. We have internal for their own compliance, and this goes along with privacy officers. We have internal and external privacy officer roles we're asking for city approval of. We have internal audits, we have external or city auditor audits, and then we're going to have a separate independent third-party audit. I've met with various staff and council members. I've met with Chief Wentz last Wednesday. Everyone's saying the right things, that we're going to have maximum transparency built into this. So it's going to be very significant. Assuming those votes actually go forward and we get them. One of the tactics that I used when we were debating in January, February, and March was attacking this from a cost perspective. One of the dirty little secrets of surveillance equipment is that it doesn't work often. ShotSpotter is useless. Our chief raised a big fuss last March when he said he wasn't going to renew the contract. It doesn't work. Menlo Park, which I commend them, they recently introduced a license plate ordinance with only a 30-day retention period, and they built in required transparency reporting. One stolen vehicle. It just doesn't work. Not at the price that's being charged for it. So what we're building in addition to the civil liberty safeguards is a lot of taxpayer protection metrics that I think going down the road people are going to see, because surveillance cameras have never effectively produced long-term downturns in crime. They're going to see that this equipment is not worth paying for. It's not worth staffing. I know a few of the council members, mayor staff, they don't want to pay for this right now. We do have a 2-year operating grant to staff 2 people. Nobody wants to pay for it beyond that. So maybe from the money side, we can also attack this expansion of the program. Again, as I said, statutory damages, misdemeanor charges, and a private right of action. Making sure that there's liability for misuse so that the staff is focused on what they're doing. Oakland shows up to every protest. I know when there's just recently an Urban Shield debriefing at Oakland High School, there was 3 police cars there before the event even started. There was no suspicion of wrongdoing. It wasn't a protest. It wasn't a march. That's intimidation. That is infringement upon civil liberty protecting activity. And Oakland does that routinely. So what we're trying to build in is these protected activity certifications. Every time that DAC gets turned on, it's going to be recorded use, and it's going to be published, and we're all going to get to see that as they really are targeting Occupy like we suspect they are, and others. That leads into the standing committee and the citywide privacy policy. Right now, we have no publicly available data or retention policies for any surveillance equipment in Oakland. We delete license plate data when our storage is full. Right now, we see the citywide privacy policy as sort of an umbrella, a master policy that would have multiple policies underneath it. The surveillance equipment ordinance would be solely about surveillance equipment, so a little bit more narrow.
So we have the DAC privacy, the city privacy,
and then the surveillance ordinance. The surveillance equipment ordinance, again, as I mentioned, Oakland, just like every other municipality, is the Wild West. We have no regulations. We have not had a public debate. We have not had an informed city council on the use of surveillance equipment. Not only whether it's license plate readers, shot spotter. I don't know if all of you are familiar with Stingray. So we're going to have informed public debate at the beginning, informed city council decisions that fully understand all the technical capabilities. When the Domain Awareness Center was going through the council, it was painfully obvious that they had no idea what the capabilities of this technology was. Most of the public had no understanding of what the technology was. We're going to have operational and data protocols for all equipment. It's going to be built, again, on maximum transparency, and there will be liability for misuse. So OPD has had Stingray since 2007, and even used to brag about it. In 2007, 8, and 9, they would put their statistics, the arrest statistics, up on the website. So that must have been before the non-disclosure agreement kind of came into play, and before the FBI started shutting everything down, but they used to be public about it. That went away in 2009. They're not really using it right now. I knew that elsewhere, but Chief Went also confirmed that to me, because we've all moved on to 4G cell phones. We have a 2G, 3G system. They are currently applying for a grant in partnership with the Alameda DA and the City of Fremont Police to share the new Hailstorm upgrade, and that would get all of our 4G phones. So that's what we're trying to get in place now before we get this new upgrade. How would it change? The ordinance is retroactive. All existing equipment would have to meet the same standards. Can we kill the Stingray? Possibly, because it's such a controversial item. But if it survived, how might that look? Independent audits, deletion of everyone else's data. Chief Went told me that's what they do. As I mentioned, it's a dragnet, okay? So it sucks up all our data in this room. He's got a warrant for your number, but he sucked up everybody else's information. He told me that they are deleting everybody else's information. He goes, we have no use for it, I don't want to store it, we delete it. Okay, are you willing to put that in writing and be independently audited? He said yes. So that's very encouraging to me if something like a Stingray is going to survive. And so that's the basic framework that would apply. Any existing equipment, anything coming forward that meets the definition of surveillance equipment is going to have to go through the same protocols, through the same public process. We do have an existing whistleblower ordinance in Oakland. It only allows for city employees to report. As you know, Edward Snowden was a contractor. There's also other third parties that can be involved. So we brought in the definition so that anyone could file a whistleblower report. And we also made multiple avenues so you can report. Previously, you could only complain to the city auditor. We now will have, assuming we get to Standing Privacy Committee, we'll have 3 different routes that you can report, including our beefed up Public Ethics Commission, which hopefully will actually do something now in the future of Oakland, because it's been pretty bad so far. So we have a unique situation in Oakland where our port is semi-autonomous. We have no authority, my committee has no authority to regulate the port staff or the port equipment, which exists separately from the DAC. The video and data feeds feed into the DAC, the brain, so to speak, which we do have jurisdiction over. So what we've done is make a very tight policy to govern this very narrow item. And that's why we're pushing for the citywide privacy policy and for the surveillance equipment ordinances to get jurisdiction of these other items. Well, that's again why we have a no data sharing prohibition unless the council approves a memorandum of understanding, which would again have to go through the public process. At the moment, no. But that was certainly on the table at the beginning. As far as the drone and live feed, I mean, I'm not familiar enough quite with San Jose to know, what their intentions were. What Aesthetics was explaining earlier is that the cameras are always recording at the port. The port does have its own kind of brain, its own system. It feeds into our software application in Oakland. And we have the ability to bookmark or point towards the video frames that we might need. Let's say there's a fleeing vehicle. It's going down 7th Street fleeing the port, and the DAC operator needs to get the license plate number to tell OPD, hey, you're looking for a brown Chevy with 2 doors. That bookmark allows it to point to the exact video feed that it needs quickly. That's the utility. It's meant to be a real-time coordinating system to help first responders. What we're worried about is, in its original intent, it was just going to record everything. And we had 300 terabytes, that's a lot of video, and it would have just been soaking it all up. So we're saying, no, if you're going to record, if you're going to hit the record button, you need to have a reason. We've been postponed 3 times, but our new city council date is February 10th. We're going to be before the Public Safety Committee, which is where we started out last year. Desley Brooks was just appointed the chair. That's a very big deal for us. Dan Kalb, which is this area's council member, and Abel Guillen. That makes up 3 of the good votes. Then we also have Noel Gaio, who was in favor of a full-blown citywide DAC. He was the chair last year. So we have 3 out of 4 good votes on the Public Safety Committee going forward to try to get all this stuff that I just talked about out of committee. Once we get to the full city council, we've got 2 to 3 more, we've got 3 more good votes. We have the support of the mayor on at least most of this stuff. We have the support of the chief as to transparency. So if we ever had a perfect fact pattern to get real meaningful legislative long-term reform done, it's right now. But we have to make sure that we actually show up. We won last March because we had 400 people show up. We had 200 unanimous speakers. We had 40 groups sign on our joint letters of opposition. We had a ton of press. That's why we won. So we need to replicate that again to make sure people know we're still paying attention.